So I came to them with the idea of doing a single-camera comedy based on the Douglas Adams book, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, which I was a big fan of all things Douglas Adams. And they read it, and they were amused, and they said, "This is great, this is very funny, but how about a single mom?" And I was like, oh, okay, there's not a lot of room for compromise here. I said, why do you want me to write a show about a single mother? He said, well, we think you can do it. And to their credit, really, because I didn't really understand why I pursued this, they encouraged me to go to Elgin, Illinois. They had some inns at Elgin because of the development of Roseanne. They knew people in the Chamber of Commerce in this little town outside of Chicago, where Elgin watches were made way back when. And I went there for a few days, and I was taken around to meet with single moms. And the idea was to get as far away from Los Angeles and the Hollywood environment as possible and meet working women who were raising children on their own. And so I met women who were teachers and nurses and women who were living, in welfare housing, and women who were struggling, and women who were doing pretty good. And I met many different women, and I got to sit and they put together rooms with 8, 10 women who we just sat and talked about raising children by yourself and having a full-time occupation. And many of them worked 2 jobs to take care of life and limb. And it was remarkable. I was really moved by it. I said, this is a heroic story. Raising children without and at the time, the single mom model was Murphy Brown. And Murphy Brown, was the e-ticket. She had help, she had nannies, she had, she could be a professional woman and the kid was taken care of. What happens if you don't have that kind of income and lifestyle? How do you raise children? And I remember asking one of these ladies if a show about a woman working, full-time job and raising children by herself were on TV, would you watch it? And I remember one woman said, well, what time would it be on? Because I get very tired and I can't stay up late. Once I get my kids to bed, I'm done. And I just, your heart just breaks open and you go, oh, I want to tell this story. I really want to tell this story. This has Greek tragedy in it. This is Sisyphus in a way. This is an impossible task, raising a child or children, and feeding them and paying the bills and keeping the car running and when they get in trouble in school but you have to work and there's no guarantees. The check is going to come at the end of the week and so Grace Under Fire came out of that experience.
And how did Brett Butler come to the show?
Carsey Werner brought her. One of their executives had seen her do stand-up in New York and thought that she could make the leap from stand-up to sitcom, as had Roseanne. Again, they were thinking, it was very much in the day of, let's go find stand-ups, because stand-ups can do comedy. I've since come to understand that actors can do them as well. But at the time, the mindset was, let's get stand-up comedians because they understand how to do jokes. As it turned out, Brett was a very good actress and right out of the gate, having never acted before, I thought she did a wonderful job, especially, even with the dramatic moments, she was very, very, it was very natural. And I'd seen her I went to see her stand up, and I watched tape of her stand up. There was no film of her acting to watch. And part of her act was that she'd been in an abusive marriage, and and she had looked for Mr. Right and found Mr. Right Hook. Was one of the jokes, and thought it'd be a pretty bold idea to make that the backstory for Grace, that her her marriage had been abusive, and so I asked her, "Can I use your backstory for the backstory of the character?" And she said, "If you can do it, and it can be dignified, and it's not, not, we don't joke it." And I said, "Well, no, obviously we'd want to try and, this is kind of risky, sitcoms hadn't really dealt with spousal abuse, you know." So that became the backstory of the character for Grace, that, she had survived an abusive marriage. And the pilot story was mainly, she was frightened that her son might have that anger, violence streak in him. I mean, it was a pretty, dark story for a sitcom pilot, fearing that the child might be a chip off the old block, a blockhead, whatever it was. But so it was kind of bold for the time, '93, I guess.